course. And we were even having that discussion, like, do we just list 1401? Well, yeah, we should be listing 1401 if that's the recommendation for the major and guiding students toward that, but they could still use the other area A math courses if they wanted to take quantitative and use that. And so we have where we did list it as the option coming in for fall students was in our learning support placements. So we have the Matching Math 0996 support course for statistics, since it's an area A math course as well. But we didn't end up enrolling any students this fall into that. So although it was the preferred option for those majors, we didn't have as many sections of that statistics lab option as we had with our quantitative. And our students ended up moving into the quantitative in lab rather than the statistics in lab placement for this fall.
Great. Thanks for sharing those insights. I mean, I think, as you heard Jonathan mention, I've had a chance to speak with many of you across the system on how you are implementing the math pathways and the statistics pathway, I should say specifically. And what Sam and Beth and others have shared here already is fairly consistent in terms of what we're hearing across the system. Is we have a little bit of an apples and oranges sort of, or not an apples and sort of a chicken and egg sort of situation here, where on one hand, you can build the course, but if you can't have good information for students about why they should take the course, which sort of suggests what programs is it recommended for, why is this relevant, how will it contribute to my program of study, how do I make that argument, right? How do I communicate that to students, particularly as Sam mentioned, those who are, have no real background in statistics. They took Algebra 2 in high school. They didn't really take anything related to statistics. Maybe they had a little bit of probability, but that's about the end of it. So when you're thinking about building a pathway, it starts with how are you sort of communicating to students what that pathway could be and what its relevance is. So I don't know if members of the panel want to chime in on that in terms of thinking about how you're thinking through this and how you might start building some communication about clarity about how to communicate to students the value of statistics as part of their undergraduate program.
Hey there, this is Jim Bellon. I thought I'd jump in here since I actually teach the class 1401. I've taught that since we started it, and for many years before that I taught we had a slightly higher version of it, Math 2063. So we took our 2063 and we basically cut it down a little bit to make it more appropriate for the area A and the incoming freshmen. Because for the 2063, I found that students had to have another course as a prerequisite, like college algebra or the quantitative skills and reasoning. I think some people were concerned about students jumping into 1401. Would they still be able to do it? And I'm finding that the students are fine. That even the students coming in directly from high school as freshmen, the very first semester in college taking the 1401. They seem to be okay. And I think what people maybe not realize is now in the standards for the high school classes, starting in 8th grade and in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry, they have a whole bunch of data analysis. So they probably cover at least half of 1401 in high school. It's not, it's featured, maybe some students, I guess it's the terminology, because they're doing data analysis, doing topics, and all of a sudden here's class in like stats, statistics, and they're like wondering, is that the same? I guess maybe we need to be a better job to realize that some of these students like, hey, we start off with mean, median, mode, pie charts. You've done that. Even other things like box plots and probability, they have done it. So I think maybe it's just the fear, the unknown, and not having the correct way to get that information to the students.
That's great, Jim. I appreciate that very much. So if I could follow up on that, Jim, real quickly. So you mentioned that you've adapted what was your Math 2063 to make 1401 as an Area A2. So
Yeah.
are you still keeping, are you thinking about adding 20 or keeping 2063, or have you changed that course, or how are you thinking about building on Math 1401 for students who need even a deeper level of statistics?
Well, I think that was the plan. With the plan was to come up with a course, and we were trying to work with, trying to talk to the other departments. We have a few of the departments that said they want that pathway, so we're talking to them. I know that the nursing majors also, they were the ones that took the Math 2063 for the most part, because it's required for them. That they still have to take 1401s. Like I'm teaching 1401 now, and my majority of my class, or at least half the class, is nursing majors, which they didn't say they needed 2 classes for a pathway for them, but they still want that, still have that course. So I mean, we're still talking to the other departments. We're still trying to figure out. And now with the we heard that there's this data 1501, so we're gonna try to look into that. And I guess with everybody in our all the people involved, whether the math group, the other the social sciences disciplines, and the advisement group, and try to figure out what would be the easiest. If we could do the 2063 and then even do a review of the 1401, but make it more of applying what they learned there. I think that would be better. Applying what they learned into some of those areas, actually collecting data, and doing some small studies, some small things with some real data would be nice.
So just so I'm understanding what you're saying, you're thinking about potentially having 2063 as a follow-on course to 1401 that allows students to go in more depth. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That has been discussed right now. I mean, we're not sure if we're going to go that way, or I mean, because if the data course that's already out there, if that seems to be working well, we know that I guess we're always open to see which way to go with that.
Okay, that's helpful.
Hey Bruce, if I could, this is Linda. I just wanted to comment that at the time that we started designing our second course in the pathway, I asked the question, does this second course, are we allowed for the second course to have 1401 as a prerequisite? And I was told at that time no. And so when we designed our second course, we were trying to come up with a pathway to have a course that followed 1401 that didn't have 1401 as a prereq. And so that's part of what derailed us in the process, is that our new course was seen as still having too much of 1401 duplicated in it, even though we were trying to make it, I mean, we were kind of on the path of what data science course ended up doing. We had designed something very similar, and we were trying to focus on Excel. So the thing that derailed us was trying to come up with a course that did not have a prerequisite, which I thought was still expected, but that didn't have too much duplication with 1401. And then the other thing is that we had Excel in the title, and the folks at our final process step didn't like that in the title.
Okay. So,
Mr. Randall.
Go ahead. Somebody had something?
Yes, sir. This is Laura Ralston. I'm a professor of mathematics at Georgia Highlands. Mm-hmm. And we actually...
Are you still there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
We've actually developed a second course to follow Math 1401. We're scheduled to offer it for the first time in spring of 2021. Our 1401, which I've been at the institution for 23 years. It's been modified off and on to fit the course descriptions as it's changed through the years. Our enrollment in that course is skyrocketing. To the point that we've actually separated out statistics as a separate department at the institution. We are currently offering this semester, we have 1401 as well as the Math 0996. with a reasonable enrollment for those courses. Our 240, we're calling it Math 2401, 2401, Intermediate Statistics, and it does have the prerequisite of 1401. It does review some of the concepts from 1401, but we set it up as a project-based course, similar to what Dr. Bellin was describing, where the students will actually take a data set and do the analysis and things. We added some content like Kruskal-Wallis, multivariate regression, as opposed to just linear regression. So it did take us a while to get it through, actually through Gen Ed and through ACMS, but that course was approved about a year ago. So I'm sure we're willing to share if someone would like to, you know, see what we have planned. We're more than happy to do that.
Great. Just quick follow-up, just so I'm clear again. So is this course, the 2401, going to be an Area D course then?
Yes.
Okay. So it gets at this question that Linda was asking about sort of having something to build off of 1401 for Area D versus the data science course, 1501, which, as I understand it, won't have a prerequisite to it. And so is sort of seen as an equal level to Math 1401.
I suppose we actually have at Georgia Highlands somewhat of a pathway already. We have limited baccalaureate degrees, and two of those are a business of bachelor's administration in logistics and supply chain management, and then also one in healthcare management. And so students take Math 1401 as their Area A. Well, currently they take it as Area D, but they can take it as their Area A. Math 1401, and then in the BBA program they take Business 3000, which is specifically geared for either healthcare management or logistics and supply chain management. We're hoping to develop pathways where they can take the 1401, 2401. We have some of our our departments pathways that are open to that. So we just got to get it all lined up, and I think for us it's an advising issue and just making them aware of it. I was curious to hear about the pushback with students, because gosh, our students love it. They'd much rather take statistics than have to take college algebra or quantitative reasoning, and our courses are busting at the seams.
Okay, so I'm seeing something emerge here that I want to maybe explore a little more deeply, and Linda, I'm going to come back to you again to just go a little bit more in depth. So from your perspective, if you're thinking about sort of what to do about Area D, whether that's a 1501 course without a prerequisite that just fulfills that requirement, that fills that void that Tristan mentioned in his opening remarks, versus the opportunity of what you can do with that course with something that builds on 1401. I mean, in your mind, it sounds like for you at Kennesaw, you're more interested in the latter. Like, how are we actually building on the 1401 as opposed to just filling that void that is left behind with students taking 1401 as Area A2. Is that right, Linda? Did I get that right?
Not really. We didn't. We've approached this second course as, one that doesn't require 1401 as a prereq. My goal the whole time with this pathway has been for those students that have had success in math in the past, and they get into a statistics course. I've just had so many students that have said, oh wow, math finally makes sense to me. And I want a way for those students to have a way to dig deeper, to find more opportunities to apply statistics-based concepts, whether it's data science or a statistics course, to their discipline and learn the skills that are going to help them, and keeping those kinds of students in mind. So as we're working on building the Data 1501 course, we're doing, it sounds very similar to what Georgia Highlands is doing with their 2401 in terms of being a project-based class, very application, hands-on oriented, but it's going to focus more, as the Data 1501 course is designed to do, to just be more of understanding data and understanding how you should properly manage data. Does that answer your question, Bruce?
I guess it only, so will it, will 1401 be a prerequisite or not, though?
No,
Again,
no.
it won't. So you could take either one. It
Correct.
just allows, so it sounds like a greater depth and breadth for students who take both courses, is essentially
Yes.
what you're saying.
Yes.
All right. So
Bruce, I have a request. This is TN from University of Georgia. You and I spoke some weeks ago. I have invited our STAT 2000 coordinator, which is the introductory statistics course. And I just want to say a few words about the follow-up course from STAT 2000. We have introduced what's called STAT 2360, which is programming and data literacy using R, which is becoming increasingly extremely popular. And many students from various disciplines are coming after taking the STAT 2000 to take this course. If you have a few minutes, I would like our STAT 2000 coordinator to say a few words about how we have structured the STAT 2000. Is it okay?
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Nick, would you mind saying a few words about STAT 2000?
Yeah, certainly. So hi, everyone. I'm the introductory statistics coordinator at the University of Georgia. My name's Nick Tobin. For our course, we have designed it, well, I'll speak to a normal semester. During a normal semester, we've designed it with a series of, it's primarily lecture-based, but students are doing a series of, I would say, kind of experiential learning labs, where they're not necessarily focused on the data manipulation aspect of statistics as much as they are on understanding how the concepts behind what we're doing in the lectures are actually coming about. So in our intro class, we actually do very little data manipulation for students during a normal semester as far as their own projects or using their own data sets. But we might have them produce data sets that we then use to demonstrate, for example, how does this sampling distribution come about? Or why does this application work well for a paired test, whereas this one works better for a test of two means? Now, since we've had the pandemic, we haven't been able to go into the lab this semester, and so we've replaced them with project-based interactions instead of
position this in terms of how you should prioritize your efforts at the institution?
For me, the priority has got to be recognizing which students I'm trying to serve.
Mm-hmm.
The general education non-STEM student has got to be who I'm thinking about in designing the courses, planning my courses, and thinking about this pathway and who we recommend it for. Getting feedback from those programs and understanding what those students need. And those programs indicated that our 1401 was meeting that need. But as I'm thinking about this Data 1501 course, for us, we're going to use Excel as part of that, because for our students that are going to be in this pathway, Excel is something that they're going to need for their careers. We'll also introduce some, kind of pre-scripted Python for dealing with bigger data sets towards the end, but our focus is really trying to understand the student that the pathway is meant to serve. Mm-hmm. And so I guess that's my almost plea to anybody that is thinking about this pathway, is to not get too carried away in just this second course, but for your particular institution, what do those students who need this pathway actually need for their careers and their coursework?
Anybody else, West Georgia, anybody want to comment on that question about sort of this particular, the importance of building the pathway, the full out pathway to this overall work in terms of prioritizing your efforts moving forward?
I think it's going to be really incumbent upon, especially from the advising side, that we begin to be able to explain this course to our students and the rationale for a pathway. And it's got to come from the momentum approach. It's got to show the purpose and relevance to the student. I think once we are able to craft that, maybe get a little bit more buy-in from the student on why a statistics pathway would be beneficial to them. Just with our student body, and I just think that is something crucial that we'll need to be able to continue to build on as we build out the pathway here.
Okay, great. Any last comments or insights? We have about 3 minutes left that people want to share. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your, first of all, thanks to the panelists for taking your time today to share your experience with us all, and all of you for joining this session. And if you did add information in the chat, we'll be definitely reviewing that information. And if you had questions or things that we did not address, I'll see to it that we find a way to get back in touch with you to get the answers to your questions. But thank you so much. I think now we're going to adjourn back to the main room. I guess you should have that link again, and we're going to have some sort of closing remarks that are going to talk a bit about sort of where we're going with the next phase of this work. So thanks again, everybody, for your time today.